Hey, welcome back. It's Sarah from Roadworthy. Since last week, I didn't really wrap up any books. This week, I kind of have a ton of books. So brace yourselves. Let's see what is going on. We are planning for our first trip in the van, hopefully next weekend. So that's exciting. We need to clean it out. And I feel like out of practice, like I'm like, what do we pack? What do we, what do we do? But that'll be great. I'm excited for that. We're gonna go to the Columbia River Gorge and go hiking for a couple of days. Odd that we've never really gone to the gorge. So that'll be cool. What else? My youngest son comes home from college this weekend. So that'll be nice to have him home and we'll all be, together again. What else? I think that's kind of it. That's what I got going on. It is, I'm just sitting here trying to think, in my head, like what do I want to start with? So actually, let me start with Thunder Song, which I don't have the book anymore. There was quite a hold list at the library and I wanted to get it back. From Sasha LaPointe. She is a Indigenous author from the Nooksack and Upper Skagit tribes. And I read this with Melinda at Web of Stories, and this is part of our Pacific Northwest Indigenous author series that we're reading this year. This is a personal essay collection from LaPointe, and she writes a lot about, obviously, colonialization and trauma, generational or intergenerational trauma, but also I want to say intergenerational healing. Really relying on stories from her great-grandmother and mother, and as a way to give her strength and a way to connect with her Indigenous heritage. I think some of the most interesting essays, there's one, she talks about the colonization of diet, which was interesting. So, her tribes and the Coast Salish people in general were salmon eaters. And she talks about, the importance of salmon to her community and becoming vegan and why she became vegan and recognizing how she was becoming increasingly disconnected from her culture and the food of her culture. That was interesting. And talking about fry bread, which is not a native food. That was a food that folks started eating when they were stuck on reservations and given food allotments from the federal government. Which I didn't realize, which I feel kind of stupid for not realizing that. But anyway, I think that was an interesting essay. She has an essay about her experience having an abortion and almost having significant consequences of that abortion and feeling as if she was ignored because she was poor, young, and native, and didn't get the health care that she deserved. She talks a lot about, Melinda had talked about the essay about the Tulip Festival in the Skagit Valley, and how that Tulip Festival came to be because of the colonizers completely filling in the wetlands to create this farmland and introducing the tulip, and how for her and her people, the Tulip Festival every year and all the white tourists coming in is like repeated trauma of colonization, which that was a very interesting essay to read as well. So there is a tone to these essays that feels sort of angry and frustrated, but yet there's also oftentimes that's counterbalanced with a message of healing and hope. Melinda described it as some of these essays still feel like an open wound, and I thought that was a perfect way to describe it, that she's still actively processing feelings around these
issues. So anyway, that was an interesting collection, and Melinda is up for choosing our next book for, I think, August. So then let me get to my Gray and May selections. So this is the read along that I'm doing with Sarah over at Eyes on Indie, and we're reading Grey Wolf Press books to celebrate Grey Wolf's 50th anniversary. So I read Brickmakers by Selva Armada and translated by Annie McDermott. This is one of the group reads for the event. This is opens with two sons from feuding families of brickmakers, and they have stabbed each other, and they're both dying. And so the book that follows is sort of their flashbacks to memories. They're sort of these dreamlike hallucinatory sections where maybe one of them thinks his dead father is coming to sit with him while he's dying. So again, there's these sort of hallucinatory moments, but when they do have these flashbacks, they're written in a sort of a straightforward style, if the idea of a whole, dreamlike book scares you. But it basically tells the story of how these families got feuding, and how that sort of got carried down. You often read books from women, let's say, talking about, the patriarchy and the challenges of women meeting expectations of spouses in society. And this is sort of the opposite. This is sort of toxic masculinity and really these men trying to meet societal expectations of masculinity, what it means to be a man, a father, a husband, and all the ways that destroys both these characters as well as their wives and children, and again, how those expectations from the father just go down to the son. So that's really what a lot of this book is about. I thought this was amazing. I loved it. I just thought, this is the second Armada book that I've read, and I will definitely keep reading books of hers as they get translated, because I thought this was really fantastic, and I love the cover. The cover's really fantastic too. Then my next Grey Wolf book was Mother Country by Jacinda Townsend. This I listened to on audio, and we have our main character, Shannon, who has a whole bunch of student loan debt. She's in a car accident, and ends up with a whole bunch of medical debt. And she ends up infertile as a result of that car accident as well. And she meets this guy, Vlad, and within 3 months of meeting him, they get married. And it's very clear she's marrying him because he's boring, he's safe, and she needs his financial security. His job sort of takes him around the world. He's an engineer, and he goes, they end up in Morocco for a while. He's putting up a windmill farm or something like that. Anyway, and he goes to work all day, and she's wandering around Morocco, and she ends up seeing this young girl, like this 3-4-year-old girl, alone. And after a couple of days, and she decides to take her. She feels like Vlad really wants her to have children with him. She never tells him that she can't. And she sort of convinces him, let's take this child who's clearly being neglected or whatever. And so they bribe a government official to give them a passport to take this child back to the United States. And so you get alternating chapters of her, as well as the child's real mother, Saria, and you get her story. Obviously, there's a lot of meditations on motherhood, right? How do you define motherhood? What makes a good mother? What is a mother? But the other thing that's really interesting in this book too is both women make sort of questionable choices. Both of them lie to their husbands. Both of them marry for financial security. And yet Shannon's not very sympathetic because she steals a child. But Saria is, because she was stolen herself as a child. So she is a victim of human trafficking. And so it's interesting how in some ways they have very similar plot points, yet Saria is sympathetic, Shannon is not. And yet Townsend does a great job of, over the course of this novel, you begin to be more understanding of Shannon's situation, and you become kind of sympathetic to her and understand she's kind of in a crappy situation and she's sort of doing the best that she can. So I think it's really well done. It's quite a magic trick to make a sort of an unlikable character yet sympathetic. So interesting too, watching these two women both trying to conform to expectations of being a wife and a mother, and how they each struggle in their own different ways. So I I really enjoyed this book. I was really surprised. I wasn't expecting to like this book as much as I did. So definitely one that I would encourage folks to pick up. Then I read Ongoingness, The End of a Diary by Sarah Manguso, also for Gray and May. This is another one of the group reads. This is a very teeny tiny book. And I don't know how to describe this book. It's excerpts from Sarah's diary. And they're snippets. So it's not really an essay collection. It's not really diary. It's not real, like, I'm not sure what this is. But she exhaustively is trying to, well, here's what she says. I tried to record every moment, but time isn't made of moments. It contains moments. There is more to it than moments. And so she is spending hours a day trying to capture every detail of her life. So there ends up being a lot of discussion of time and memory and forgetting. That's interesting. Another quote that I really loved. Another friend said, I want to write sentences that seem as if no one wrote them. The goal being the creation of a pure delivery system without the distraction of a style. The goal being a form no one notices. The creation of what seems like pure feeling, not of what seems like a vehicle for a feeling. Language as pure experience, pure memory. I too wanted to achieve that impossible effect. I think that little snippet alone gives you a vibe for what this is. There are a couple people in the Discord channel commented that, like, there's an amazing sentence on every single page. And that you end up flagging everything and it becomes meaningless. But then this goes on, and Sarah ends up having a child, and talks about, she also has meditations on motherhood, but also her attitude towards the diary changes, and her attitude about time changes and memory changes as a result of being a mother. So this was one of those, like, super interesting, thought-provoking little numbers. Yeah, this is definitely unusual and a little bit of a treat. And again, Sarah's writing is amazing. So if this sounds at all remotely interesting, do pick it up and give it a try. Again, it's super short. I mean, this is what the writing is on some of the pages. I mean, you know, you could read this in one sitting if you wanted, but I think it's too thought-provoking that I think you really would get more out of it if you broke this up and read it in chunks. Anyway, good one. And then the last one that I just finished last night is Everything Calls for Salvation by, I think it's Daniele Mancarelli. I forgot to look up how to pronounce his name. Translated from the Italian by Wendy Wheatley. This is autofiction about a guy named Daniele Mancarelli, who is involuntarily committed to a mental hospital for 7 days for assaulting his father. And this, I read this as part of Mental Health May. And so this one is really about, let me read a quote because that'll kind of sum up what this is about. There are 5 crazies with whom I'm sharing the room and 1 week of my life. With them, I did not have the possibility to lie, to recite the role of the perfect person. They have accepted me for what I am, for my nature so close to theirs. With them, I've been talking about illness, God, death, time, and beauty without feeling judged or analyzed. This has never happened to me before. These 5 crazies are the closest thing to friendship I've ever encountered. More, even they're like brothers, offered by life, found in the same boat in the middle of the same storm, caught between lunacy and some other thing that one day I'll be able to name. There they are, each in his own corner of the room, defenselessly facing their own condition, exposed to the weather, naked men clinging to life, crushed by an insanity handed to them. My brothers. So this is really about his experience and the 5 men that he's hospitalized with, interacting with the nurses, doctors, and one another. And yeah, they talk about illness, they talk about God, they talk about their families, and because they can be so honest and raw with one another, how they end up supporting one another and providing, salvation for one another as they're there in the hospital. I enjoyed this. I wasn't blown away by this, but I definitely enjoyed this. And this is another really short book. So definitely, I think one that is worth giving a go. So that feels like a really quick run through of everything that I finished up this week. I'm a little bit between things. I am listening to and Then She Fell by Alicia Elliot. And I'm not sure, since I just picked this up finished this late last night, I need to pick something else up today, and I've not quite decided what I'm gonna pick up. So anyway, I hope you all are enjoying the spring weather. I hope it's sunny and beautiful where you are. And I hope everyone's having a good reading week and enjoy the week to come. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.